everyone. Welcome to our deep dive of 1996's Test for Echo. So today we have another new guy, diehard Test for Echo advocate Ryder in the top right-hand corner, denoted with his T for E Rocks banner on his television and his Test for Echo shirt. So before we dive into the album art, the songs, we want to just have a quick moment of silence for Geddy Lee's mother, Mary, who passed away recently. So let me just do a quick moment of silence. All right, thanks, guys. Let's briefly talk about the album art, as everyone shows their records. I wanted to read again. There's a really good passage from Hugh Syme's book. During June of 1995, Neil Peart motorcycled across Canada to visit the town of Yellowknife, which is in the Northwest Territories, 250 miles south of the Arctic Circle. During his stay, Neil became enamored with a local landmark. Overlooking the town is a striking formation of rocks in the shape of a man. The Inuit Indians built primitive statues of this sort known as Inukshuk as markers of trails, hunting grounds, and food caches. To Neil, the Inukshuk represented something more. It was a sign of life. For the Indians who once traversed the tundra for days on end, the sight of these stone figures was a reassuring sign, a permanent echo of a previous visitor. It was the first time I had seen the Inukshuk, which literally means in the shape of man, Neil says. I was seeing them around the Arctic, and I knew they were used as finding points for people. So I thought it's an echo of humanity. Neil purchased a postcard of that particular Inukshuk in Yellowknife and sent it to Hugh Syme. The cover of Test for Echo features an Inukshuk looming stark against a vast plain of snow. It's impossibly large, King Kong sized. On its right side, 3 ant-sized climbers attempt to scale its summit with pickaxes and ropes. The snowscape image continues on the back cover. 3 snow-embedded satellite dishes gaze hopefully at an ocean of sky. They're listening for echoes of extraterrestrial life. The location of the Inukshuk on the album cover can now be revealed. It's not in the Arctic. It's on the desk in Hugh Syme's office. The art director built an 18-inch tall model of an Inukshuk that looks almost identical to the one in Yellowknife, but he didn't construct it from stones or pebbles. I thought that was a interesting story. You can read more about it in this book if you'd like.
And I like the quote. I like the quote that Neil had in the tour book for Test for Echo, where he said, "Test for Echo was a means of Rush both asking and assuring its fan base that neither was alone. Everybody needs an echo, some affirmation to know they're not alone." So
there's maybe your theme.
We're back. Yeah. Did you miss us? But also, we missed you. And the echo of both the fans and the band reaching out. Anybody out there? Anybody out there? Yeah. You still with us? You still listening?
Yeah.
Still like us? We've been away 3 years. You still
Good
there?
Point. Very good point. All right, Tim, take it away. Let's talk the music.
So I think the production on this album is fantastic. This is the 4th and final time that they worked with Peter Collins. I think it might be, it's definitely one of his best production jobs with them. The album has a lot of bottom end. It's heavy. Sounds a lot. I think it's most similar to Counterparts because that was the one that they had just done. I just think it's full of good songs. And it might be true that you might have to go back quite a ways to find an album by Rush that's just simply a collection of songs. But if it is just a collection of songs, it's a collection of pretty good songs, some good ideas. And the song that I'm going to talk about is, I believe it's track 5, Time and Motion. And like a lot of their albums, Hugh Syme would also design graphics for each song. And so what he's got here is literally a reflection or an echo, if you like, of the line, days connect like boxcars in a train. And this song, it's all about time and motion. Mostly it's about time. And a lot of Rush songs are about time. You know, time stands still. Even Xanadu is about time standing still. Or I Think I'm Going Bald is about time. So from a young age, time has always been a recurring theme. Time and dreams and aspirations, and they've all been part of the Rush canon. And this is, I think, a lot of reflecting on different relationships that people have in their lives. I've heard it said, and I don't know where it came from, but some people are just sort of like cameo appearances or supporting players in your life. And then there's the main cast that's with you. That's your family. That's your closest friends. And the line, spontaneous relations and the long enduring kind, which is, I guess you could call that part of the chorus, even though in true Rush fashion, it's never exactly the same words. It's spontaneous elation, spontaneous relations, and then finally spontaneous emotion. But the long enduring kind, that makes me think of friends of mine that I can go literally years without talking to. And then I start talking to them again, and it's like we just hung out the day before. You know, there's something special there. You don't need to, you know, ease into it. It's like you just start right in like you never left off talking to them. Musically, I think it's very interesting. It's got a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows. It's got a very, you know, it start dun 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 dun, but then it gets very spacey, not spacey, but it gets kind of dreamy like, and there's the little keyboards that come in, and you know, Alex's guitar comes in. It's kind of an off-kilter rhythm. And I just think it's one of my favorite songs on this album. Another part that I like, I don't know if you'd call it the bridge or not, but it's comparing things like the synchronicity of nature. And so it's the mighty ocean dances with the moon, the silent forest echoes with the loon. We all know that Neil loved sitting at his house, you know, in Quebec on the lake. And, you know, I mean, we're in lake country here in Eastern Canada, and it's nothing. You'll hear the loons at night calling. So I thought that was a nice image. And I could just picture Neil sitting there and comparing how, you know, the way that the phases of the moon, the loons are calling. And it basically, it's a song about, I think, getting all that you can out of your time. Yeah. You know, that's why it says, fill them up with precious cargo, days, meaning your days, your time here on earth. Fill them up with precious cargo, squeeze in all that you can find. And it just now, even though it was later than that, he always used to say, what's the most awesome thing I can do today? This song is, I mean, obviously Neil writes the lyrics, that's how it goes, but this song, the lyrics of the song are so very Neil. But most of all, the music backs it up. The music rocks, and it goes through some interesting changes. And I just think it's a great track, and want people to re-listen to that one.
I wanted to say, this is not a quote, but I read this, that Geddy Lee said a first version of this track was put together some years prior, but never used. I don't know if anyone knew that. The only thing that I can think of is perhaps this was written for counterparts and never used because it kind of has things that go together in a way. It's the only thing that I could think of. Yeah. You summed up everything I had to say, Tim, so I have nothing left to say on this song, honestly. If anyone else wants to chime in.
Yeah, I think Time and Motion, both lyrically and musically, are one of the like strongest tracks on the album. Like, I mean, Tim said it with the off-kiltered rhythms of like the verse sections and just how far the track bounces around. The little keyboard flourishes it's like the little orchestra hits that were like really a big thing at the time. And I thought it was just for me, that's one of the most interesting songs, just how vocals bounce around off of it. Like, it feels like it's all really carried in by like the drums and just the guitars, kind of like the guitar's almost swirling. That's what I feel like. Like, I'm like
spacey. Yeah, that I think Tim was
down into like a downward spiral, something like that. That's how I feel whenever I listen to Time and Motion. It's just like that literally makes you feel like you're falling through time and like everything's going crazy. I think it's just one of the coolest cuts on the album.
The only last thing I wanted to say about this song is I personally was first couple listens through this, well, many listens through this, I didn't really enjoy it that much until I listened to it live. Then I got a newer appreciation to it in the studio, and it's only live. You can find it on YouTube. It was never put out on an album, to my knowledge. So,
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But I very much enjoyed the live version of it. So if we're trying to convince you here that Test for Echo rocks, and if that's one way to do it, I know that what I just said about Time and Motion stands for the song that Ryder is going to talk about now soon too. Go listen to these songs live, because I think it might change your opinion. Press this key and you can play along. So,
yeah, there you go.
Bound up and wound up.
Perfect segue from Ryan.
Perfect segue. There you go.
Perfect segue from Ryan. My track's going to be track number 8 from the album, Virtuality, the big one with the dated lyrics and all that. And so I grew up 2002. I grew up with YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff. I'm from a little bit of different perspective from a good chunk of Rush fans. But like on my first listen through, I mean, I was more focused on the music. I wasn't thinking about the lyrics, which let's talk about the music. This song is so much fun to play on any instrument. Like whenever I pick it up, if I'm like, oh, I want to do something heavy, I chug out that main riff. But then like how the song breaks down, and like the pre-chorus, I guess it would be, even though it doesn't always come right before it. That's one of my favorite showcases ever of Geddy Lee's flamenco technique, or it's basically like the sound of playing with a pick really, really fast, but he's using his fingers. And I feel like on this album and the album that came before it, Counterparts, that was where it really, really flourished. And I think Test for Echo is where it fully developed him with his flamenco technique, the Sans amp, and his just everything with the jazz bass. I think that's when Geddy, he like found his sound. And argue if you would about the Rickenbacker or the Wall, whatever. I think personally, to me, I think Geddy was at his best with the jazz bass and all the advanced techniques he picked up. And then just how the song progresses, I think it's super cool. Like it stays heavy, but it's fun too. It's how bouncy all the riffs in the song are, the chord progressions in the chorus, stuff like that. And when it comes to the lyrics, this song, I mean, the album came out in 1996. It was like the real boom of the internet and chat rooms and all that stuff like that. I wasn't personally there, obviously. But that's the environment that this was in. And the album, like the loose theme of communications, getting echoes and stuff like that. The internet, when it came around, that's a big, almost scary kind of thing. You basically in some cases, you shed your identity on the outside and present yourself as this new thing. And that's what I think is really cool about this with the lyrics, like astronauts in the weightlessness of pixelated space, fly tonight on our virtual wings, like a pair of vagabonds who wave between two passing trains. Like it's all this stuff about identity and, it's just super cool stuff. And then in the chorus where it's like net boy, net girl, send your signal across the world. And then even in like the final like pre-chorus of the songs, like I can smell your perfume, I can taste your lips. Listening to that now as an 18-year-old in the year 2021, that is word for word exactly the realm of social media and dating apps. Because it's all, you just do it all through your phone. It's so crazy. Like thinking about this song now, I'm like, listen to it with a 2021 context. Like Neil had a crystal ball. He's looking straight into the future from someone who's grown up with all this stuff. It's like, this is one of the Rush songs I identify with the most, because it's all about a super centralized like technology landscape where all communication's done through this. You can saving the universe in a grain of sand. It's like everything and anything is at your access. You have all the opportunity in the world. And it's just the level of communication and like just togetherness you can get through a screen. Like, it's just so crazy how, honestly, I wouldn't say that this song is dated, I would say that this song aged incredibly. Like,
Wow.
I don't, and that's not Test for Echo Defender Rider talking. That is just from a purely analytical perspective. I think that this song aged incredibly, and you just need to go back through that.
And as a historian, what I find fascinating about the song, and I go back to my original comment, you done good, new kid. I think that why this is interesting to me is, when did this come out? This came out in 1996, am I right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, what are we just getting in 1995, 1996? The internet in just about everybody's home. Up until 95 or so, you have an awful lot of people hearing about this thing called the World Wide Web, but it's really clunky. It's really slow. Remember dial-up? Okay, remember how it took like forever to download a file?
Yeah. And if somebody called, you had to stop and answer the phone, and then
Absolutely. So this is the world that Neil is writing in. This is the world where suddenly we're about to have a transformation. Those echoes we're testing for, who knows where they're going to take us, because technology is changing. You got, Tim, you got your 8 tracks, okay? And I got my original LP. And before that, there were 78s and radio and the telegraph. And each new iteration, people are like, can it get any better than this? And then, yeah, it can get better than this. It gets faster. But in getting faster, it also gets more inaccurate, and it gets more depersonalized. And this is something that worries Neil in just about every record. It's like, will we lose our identities? I mean, yeah, we'll get speed. Yeah, we'll be able to listen on our phones. But will we appreciate the music like we used to? Will we take the time to revisit the record? Or will it just be like, that sucks, not listening to that?
Yeah.
So I think what you're talking about, Ryder, is something that's incredibly important, because we're on the verge of becoming an internet society in 1996.
Exactly. And with like the progression of like, there's like the augmented reality technology where it's like you wear the glasses and stuff starts popping up, and there's like profiles you can see. Like it's almost a little bit scary. Like, as someone who like is there for technology, like I love seeing the advancement of technology and everything about computers and all that. It comes to a point where it's like, is this too far? And this song paints an image of when that goes too far. This is on the level of relationships being purely digital. And you see that in countries like Japan and stuff like that, where people are really, really just content with being like, no, I'm fine. I have a VR girlfriend. Like, it's crazy that that's an actual thing that's happening. And I see it on this album from 1996. It's so, so crazy.
And that's why I'm saying that every album, whether it's your favorite or not, they're speaking to you. Mm-hmm. There's something they want to tell you. There's something they want you to know. And we as a people tend to judge and evaluate instead of listening. Mm-hmm. How about we listen?
And even without the lyrics, like you said, Ryder, that riff's awesome. My favorite part in the entire song, and it sneaks up on me every time, is right before they go into the riff for the last time, and it goes into that drop D. It's like, like, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? I love that part.
Yeah.
Sneaks up on you.
My song is The Color of Right. Now, first, I want to just shed some light on what that term means. So in the U.S., the term "the color of right" refers to public officials who use a law to unlawfully make arrests. For example, using riot laws to improperly arrest people who are peacefully and illegally demonstrating. It's also sometimes referred to as the color of law. This is a song that Martin Popoff has described as politely loud, and I very much agree with that. I think that's an accurate representation of this tune. I think it's kind of a more simple track on this record, but it's got some pretty deep meaning, and it's a solid song. It's a pretty solid song. So, I love the opening guitar part, how Alex starts the song off here, and then Neil enters in. I mean, Rush does just about everything perfect, but I think the opening, killer opener on this track. And I wanted to give you kind of my interpretation of what this song may be about, and what I get out of it. So the song opens with, "I don't have an explanation for another lonely night. I just feel this sense of mission and the sense of what is right. Take it easy on me now. I'd be there if I could. I'm so full of what is right. I can't see what is good." I kind of interpret these two sections talking about road life, like them being on the road as musicians, or athletes might be. They're leaving their spouse or their significant other at home, and they're having lonely nights, right? Being on the road. They may be leaving their kids at home, and they're not, their intentions are good. I'd be there if I could. I'm so full of what is right. I can't see what is good. I mean, as musicians, them being on the road, I feel like, and I think we spoke about it at the beginning here, one of them had a kid at this time. I think it was Neil, right? Had or no, it was Getty. I'm sorry, it was Getty. Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's a hopeless situation. Lie awake for half the night. You're not sure what's going on here, but you're sure it isn't right. Make it easy on yourself. There's nothing more you can do. You're so full of what is right, you can't see what is true. I think that is speaking from the perspective of the partner at home, in the relationship, wondering what's happening with their partner on the road. That's kind of how I interpret that. And it's just, I could be completely wrong with that, but that's kind of what I get out of it. Whether it's them worrying about their partner remaining faithful or being safe, or just overall general worry. And then regarding the last four lines here. So gravity and distance change the passage of light. Gravity and distance change the color of right. So Neil explains that these lyrics that surround it are rather unremarkable, and the context of the song seems to cast these lines in the sense of don't be self-righteous, something rather uninteresting. But I have used the above metaphor, changed it around, suited it to my needs. I am interested in the double sense of gravity and distance, physical versus metaphysical. I take the second meaning of the quotation as another way of saying there is great difference between theory and practice. When things are serious, we see them up close. They look different. So I think we're talking about physical gravity and distance. I guess in science, change the passage of light. But then when he talks about the metaphysical, gravity and distance change the color of right, it's almost to me the gravity of the situation, the magnitude of the situation, right? And distance, I'm thinking long distance, right? The spouse is on the road, the partner is on the road. Now, in terms of the music, well, actually, one more thing about that is, kind of depending on the situation, the color of right changes based on kind of how dire or how urgent the situation is or becomes. I think that's kind of a general overall statement, but fits with the theme of where I'm going with what I think the lyrics mean. But the last thing I wanted to state was musically, right before what I would consider a kind of a very simple guitar solo. It's not some banger of an Alex Lifeson solo, and I don't even know if you would consider it a solo. Well, what I was going to say was right before the solo, there's a part where Neil comes in, and it just sounds so smooth, and you can really tell it sounds a little bit different than prior Neil, and you can really tell where he's been working with Freddie Gruber here, I think, in this part. I always appreciated that part. But yeah, I always appreciated the simplicity of the guitar solo. I guess you call it a guitar solo in this part here, instrumental part. But I love the song. I think it's a very, very solid track. It's not some big time hit by any means, but it's a very solid tune that definitely deserves love, and I think definitely worth another listen.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I think that's one of the ones that's got Alex playing the mandola on it. He plays that on Half the World, and I think he plays it on this too, because you can hear a little like ding 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 ding. Like I think you can hear that mixed in. When you're talking about the guitar solo, you mean the part that goes down, 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 down.
Yes,
down.
yes.
It's like it's like the melody. It doesn't call for a flashy guitar solo. It's just a nice melody.
Right. I don't know what else to call it other than like it's where the guitar solo should be in the song, like, but it's not really like it fits the song perfectly, whatever you want to call it, you know.
It always
all of Alex's stuff.
It always struck me as a nice, that you're so full of what is right, you can't see what is true. It always struck me as a nice way of saying you're so full of whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this also gets back to Neil's commentaries about religion too. It's not religion that is the problem for Neil. It's people that are right, people that think that they know and you're going to hell, okay, because I'm right. And so many people live their lives just judging and evaluating, and they're so sure that only their way of looking at things is the right way, and that everyone else is wrong. And that was very hard for Neil to accommodate. Remember that we talked about this in the last episode when he took took his trip across Canada and everywhere else, and he ran into evangelicals and started realizing that he was kind of doing some version of what they were doing. He was judging and evaluating and just kind of like, oh, those people. You don't have to agree with someone, to just respect what they believe and just leave it there. Just let it be there.
It's also the like witch hunt, confident their ways are best. So it's it's a recurring theme.
Yeah,
sure.
This song's lyrics, this might actually, like, after like rereading them for this might actually be my favorite lyric on the album. Cause like this is another song that I really, really identify with. It's like what I see in this song, it's basically exactly what Ryan said. It's like someone being out somewhere else and then someone else having a different like perspective on what's going on. Like living the tour, like I'm sure, I mean, obviously I can attest to this, doing that tour life in the years before cell phones and like
that's a really good point.
Communication. You're out on the road, you don't talk to someone for a while, they're gonna assume the worst. They're like, oh, you're strung out right now, you're doing drugs, or you're out partying all the time, you're out with other women and stuff like that. And then even now, like when
it was so hard to keep in touch back in those days. I mean, at least now, I mean, when Getty's daughter was born, okay, and he's out on the road, today you can FaceTime. What did you do 20 years ago? How do you hold a telephone up to a baby?
Yeah, exactly. That's like, I think
they're over in England recording in the late 70s, and like it's crazy. Like it's funny. Get back to talking about virtuality. For Ryder, you don't know a time when that was different, but for those of us that can remember a time even before YouTube, it hit everybody really hard. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just like that's what I see this song as. Like, it's like it's the sense of what is right and what should be going on between two people who have no idea what's actually going on the other end of things. Yep. And like, even if I'm hanging out with my friends, like I'll get a text from a parent, like, what are you up to? You should be back by now, or something like that. And yeah, sometimes that is me being stupid and whatever, but it's like, like, it's not the constant knowing of what's going on. Like, if I'm like, if you're out with a friend for a long time, you're like all of a sudden staying later than you should have been. Like, you're staying like an extra hour or two after. The person on the other end who doesn't know why you're staying the extra hour is they're gonna assume the worst. Like, oh, they're gonna do drugs or something. Like,
and And now we're at the other extreme where it's like you're being tracked on your cell phone. And I'm not talking about politically. I mean, oh, well, this candidate tracks. No, I'm saying that like marketers, advertisers, like, I just bought, a pair of nylons and, the next thing I know, any browser any place I go, suddenly ads for nylons. It's like,
Yeah.
just bought them. Why do I want to buy them again? But the last book you read, the last book you bought, it's spooky. It really is.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to buy these again?
If you like this, you might like these.
Yeah. All right. Donna, you're up.
After a fashion. So as I was saying, I was mortally offended when I read, "This is one of the worst Rush songs of all time. It is not even in the top 100. It is not even in the top 200. It is one of the worst." That's ultimate classic rock. People who I love dearly, God bless them. Neil saw it differently. Neil wrote that what he was trying to do was play around with something from Sigmund Freud. He had come upon a book called Totem and Taboo. Very famous book, psychology, anthropology from 1913. Today, very controversial, okay? And I'm not going to get into a whole big thing about why I do not like this book. But as a historian, it was an important book in its day. And Neil came upon it. And without getting into, what he thought about every chapter, he said he was fascinated by the totem, which represents what we worship, and the taboo, which represents what we fear. And in this song, we have that dichotomy. We have what we worship versus what we fear, okay? So he starts off with, "I've got 12 disciples and a Buddha's smile," which is kind of cute when you think about it. But actually, the number 12 is a very famous magical and mystical number in a number of religions. You got Christianity, of course, with the 12 apostles. There are 12 lesser prophets in the Hebrew Bible, what you guys call the Old Testament. Revelations talks about 12 gates to the city, 12 gates to heaven. The Greeks had 12 major gods. We've got 12 months in the year. So 12 is not accidental, is what we call a magical number, okay? And 12 disciples, and Neil joked about that. He said, "I'd like to have 12 disciples." And I said, "You got a lot more than that."
Yes.
Seriously. Okay, you really do. And a Buddha smile. As with Baby Yoda, Buddha is like, whatever's happening, that's what was supposed to happen. Just be calm about it. Be okay with it. Garden of Allah, Viking Valhalla, a miracle once in a while. He talks about Vishnu. If you know your Hindu mythology, I used to teach this stuff. Vishnu, of course, is the creator god, okay? And then Gaia, who is the goddess, the Greek goddess of earth. She is the personification of earth, okay? So you've got creation, you've got earth, you've got all of these different mythological trends floating around in one song. And he says they're dancing around my totem pole. All of the influences in society that have affected Neil and that have affected us, and we probably don't even realize it. What's a symbol? What's a totem? A totem is something that represents our identity. It's a Native American word. It comes from the Algonquin tribe. It stands for the representation of our clan group, of who we are, okay? And who are we identified with? And yet we have all of these influences in our lives. And he keeps repeating, I believe in what I see. I believe in what I hear. I believe that what I'm feeling changes how the world appears. So true. When you are feeling a particular way, doesn't it affect the way even the slightest thing happens? Like if I'm having a bad day and somebody gives me bad service at a restaurant, I'm going to be like, grumble, grumble.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm having a good day and somebody gives me bad service in a restaurant, it's, yeah, whatever. You know, we all have our bad days, you know. Or there's some songs that I listen to them and they just cheer me up. Okay. There's other songs I listen to them. It's like, God, that's really depressing when you think about it. So what I'm feeling absolutely changes the way I look at the world. Okay. Angels and demons dancing in my head. This song is about the dichotomies in our life. This song is about the binaries, the good and the bad, good and evil, angels and demons, okay? I'm part satanic, I'm part angelic. Every person has these multitudes within them. The Zoroastrians used to believe that life was a conflict played out with the good god, Ahura Mazda, fighting against the evil god, Angra Mainyu. And each of us had to decide which side are we going to be on. Do we want to be on the side of good? Do we want to be on the side of evil? Every day we have to decide. In Judaism, we have a concept called mitzvah. Every day you get the opportunity to choose. It says in Deuteronomy chapter 30. Therefore, I ask you to choose good, choose life. It's a choice. And Neil is talking about that. And then he talks about the media messiahs preying on our fears. There are a number of cable channels that started getting created in the 1990s. The internet starts increasingly putting out all kinds of information. Suddenly, you are seeing so much stuff that isn't accurate. I grew up in a world where you could trust the media. Now, whether that's good or bad is a conversation for another day. But Walter Cronkite was considered the most trusted man in America. He was a CBS News anchor. It was like, if Walter said it, we don't have that today.
Nope.
Today, if someone says it's Monday, people are like, how do we know it's Monday? What if it isn't Monday? What are you saying that it's Monday? I'm going on social media and I'm going to talk about your mother. And
I don't believe in Monday.
yeah, it's like, I don't believe in Monday. How do we?
Yeah.
So this is just starting to happen. And when Neil's talking about the media messiahs, we're all looking for saviors. Neil has said on more than one occasion, God rest his soul, I don't want to be anyone's savior. I don't want to be anyone's messiah. I'm a musician. I'm a drummer. But there are people who would just like worship. And it's like, no, like don't substitute. You know, his mind is not for rent to any god or government. Don't rent out your mind to me.
That sounds
I'm just
familiar.
Neil. I'm a drummer. And yes, if you like my lyrics, think about my lyrics. But don't turn me into your totem. Don't turn me into your object of worship. Rush are a band that demands that you think for yourself. And in this song, he's warning against those media messiahs, the pop culture prophets. The words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, you know, that kind of thing. He talks about the celestial mechanics. There's lots of puns in here, okay? Astronomy, objects in space, outer space, seasonal migrations. This is actually a very clever song. And I'm looking at the lyrics just because I made a whole bunch of notes and I wanted to make sure I got all my notes right. But here again, he keeps repeating about how the way we look at things affects how we see them. The way we're feeling affects how we see things. And at the end, he comes back again, and we've seen him do this before. He comes back with the lyrics of a hymn. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. But where is our home? Where is our home? And when we get there, What will we do there? Will we make the most of it? Will we make the best of it? Will we turn it into something good and positive? Will we choose life? Or will we just turn it into something that is demonic? Will we be followers or will we be creators? Will we be Vishnu? Will we be Satan? Who will we be? And every day we get to make that choice. And the person who said this was one of the worst Rush songs did not listen to the lyrics, is all I'm saying.
I think the person who said that didn't listen to the next song on the record.
Yeah.
Which is Dog Years.
Musically,
I'm totally kidding. I love Dog Years. Everyone hates Dog Years, but
musically
Dog
too.
Years.
Musically, it's a really melodic song too, and it's kind of the beginning of, like, I noticed Geddy started using a lot of vocal melodies on Vapor Trails, like using his voice as an instrument. But it's got that nice whoa, whoa.
Yeah,
He does that, and it just carries the song. There's two things that is to follow on what Donna said. When in Ghost Rider, Neil talks about after the tragedies, and he talks about how a sunny day could actually seem dark because he's not in a good place, even though it's a beautiful sunny day, and how he actually preferred the winter because it was better for his little baby soul, as he called it, because it was brighter out with all the snow. And the other thing that's interesting is that the totem pole is an indigenous figure or symbol, as is the Inukshuk.
Exactly. And the other thing, when I talked about the puns, like he talks about browsing among the holy cows. I mean, holy cow.
Holy cow.
Except in Hinduism, that's kind of an insult.
Yes.
Because as I've mentioned in previous shows, the cow is sacred to the god Krishna. The cow is Krishna's favorite animal. And Krishna was born into a family of dairy farmers when he took a human body and came to life. So he regarded the cow as very special. And yet for us, oh, sacred cows, like they're just like things that you just like have to rip apart. And why? Take a look at what is sacred to you, because you don't have to be a religious person to recognize the sacred in our world. There are some things that are just amazing to me. And I say this as a 74-year-old, still young and cute, but 74. It is amazing to me. I say this every time we're on. It's amazing to me that we're doing this. Because when I was growing up, the idea of 4 people in 4 entirely different cities, in 4 entirely different walks of life, sitting around and analyzing songs would have been like, yeah, right, what are you smoking? I mean, you'll never be able to do that. And yet in not even an entire lifetime, in like 25, 30 years, here we are, and we're doing it. And we're sitting and we are keeping the music alive for that next generation. So yeah, let's go upend a few sacred cows, but let's also recognize their sacredness and recognize that maybe to us, we don't understand X, but maybe that's because we just don't have enough information yet.
Yeah, that's great. Like, thinking about Test for Echo, it bears a lot of striking characteristic similarities to a couple other Rush albums. Like this, Test for Echo is a really, really fun album. And a lot of the albums from the 90s were, especially Presto and Roll the Bones. They're bouncy, they're fun, and you can tell the band's having fun doing it. But some of the lyrics, when you start reading them, they get a little bit bleak, almost like how people describe Grace Under Pressure as one of the most bleak Rush albums, dealing with crazy topics like that. This is the coming of technology, the unsureness, not trustful of the media, stuff like that. It's fun, and at the same time, it's so bleak, which really reminds me of another Rush album, my surprise sleeper thing, Caress of Steel, the other bad Rush album. It's the songs and the lyrics on this one are, well, the songs are really, really fun, but Bastille Day, the beheading of people, it's a celebratory song, but the subject matter is really dark. I Think I'm Going Bald, a very fun song about the passage of time and, oh God, we're going to die soon. Lakeside Park, reminiscing about the past, and the Necromancer and the Fountain of Lamna. It's there's just so much this album is like super shared DNA with other stuff from the Rush catalog.
And for those that are new to Rush, I really invite you to take a look at what era each song was written in, when they wrote it, what was happening historically and in the culture, because that may give you a little more idea. I mean, I say that as a professor who teaches this stuff, but I mean, I don't see how you can analyze poetry, and this is poetry. I don't see how you can analyze poetry in a vacuum. I don't see how you can analyze Shakespeare. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every song Neil wrote was Shakespeare. I'm not saying that at all. Even Shakespeare had some pretty weak stuff, okay? Some Shakespearean plays are like, ew. But I'm still glad I read them because Shakespeare. And same thing with Rush. If you look at what was happening in the culture, just like with Shakespeare, if you understand, like, when he wrote this, this was happening. That may not be why he wrote it, but it was an influence. And the more we know about the influences of our heroes, the more we can understand what they are trying to communicate to us. That's my opinion.
I wanted to propose something here. Does this song remind you at all to the song we talked about on Snakes and Arrows, The Way the Wind Blows, in a way?
Oh yeah.
I kind of get that vibe. The
Yeah.
only other thing, the last thing I wanted to add, I mean, because everything that I noted, we've already touched on here, but Rush have been the pop culture prophets that have been playing in my ears for the last 15 years. And it's really all I have to say. I feel like this song kind of also is about how the media uses religion and fear as a tool to make a profit, you know?
And gets ratings from doing it. And by the way, that's not new. That's not new. As a media historian, I can point to stuff in the 1890s, like, 100 and something years ago when they were doing the same thing. It's a very interesting time to be analyzing rock lyrics. It really is.
It is.
And it's also a very interesting time to love a band that insisted that we think and that we think for ourselves and that we find connections. That we find connection.
100%.
Yeah, I think just my closing thought on all of this, Test for Echo really is an album of its time, but it told a tale that is more and more today becoming truthful. If people will say, if you want a Rush album to think about like today, they'll recommend 2112 or whatever. Check out Test for Echo. That's what I feel. So much of what's happening today is in this album that people don't like a lot. Maybe because of the lyrics seeming out there, like, what are you talking about? The internet's not going to do that. It did. It really did. And then that's all. That's
Yep. Guys, I had so much fun doing this. This was like, there's some albums that it's like it writes itself because it's such a famous album. Like, oh my God, everybody knows Limelight and everybody knows Tom Sawyer. But to get into some of the lesser known albums and to perhaps share with people a track that maybe they haven't thought about in a while. Ryan, thank you so much for having me on and inviting me. And thank you to all of you folks for just being here to do this. What a treat.
This was so much fun. Test for Echo, rocks, T for E. Go back and listen to this record because it's really good. Listen to it a handful of times.
It may surprise you.
Mm-hmm. Later era Rush is phenomenal. And I'll say it again, Test for Echo rocks, and we will wrap there. Thanks everyone for sticking it out with us. We'll see you next time on our fan choice deep dive. So we're going to be discussing one song from each of the previous 4 albums that we deep dived into. So we will see you then. See you.